I'm Jim Check. You're watching Kelowna Now, and I have with me Gord Lovegrove, and we're going to talk about the Love Train. Lots of feedback on that. You did a story. Kent calls it the Love Train. I don't think you call it the Love Train, but Kent Mulgat has named it the Love Train, and that's the hydrogen train that you're proposing to run from
Osoyoos up to Kamloops and Kamloops down to Osoyoos.
There you go. And you were just telling me when we were talking prior to going on, so you got over 500,000 hits on UBCO for.
Yeah, UBC Okanagan put out a social media blast on just talking about the papers that got published, and second only to the wildfire reports last summer. It's so
everything from Gord, like what are you talking about, or what are you thinking about, or
well, these were just two papers that got published in Sustainability Journal. The first was on the technical feasibility. First of all, can it be done? And so we chose as a case study the highway as the limit because, can you get done? Where? What are you talking about? What hills? What curves? And the second was, okay, so how much is this thing going to cost? And does it make sense? Does the economic feasibility, does it hold water? And
maybe, Jason, you could find that photo of that and you can put it up there as we go. I'll give him something to do while he's...
As opposed to the clouds behind us.
There you go. I was talking about the feedback, though, like the feedback that you got from it, from people saying, anyway, like, is Gord crazy? To like, hey, that's a great idea. Because we got a lot of that feedback, too, when we did a story. Like, a lot of people were sending in as like...
I actually got emails of full support. When I did, after UBC told me they'd put it on their social media site, I actually went in to check, because I could not believe when they said they had 500,000 hits on it, to check. And I saw a comment about... something not why would you do that? Why would you do that? And I said, hey, listen, we have been looking at this for 20 years. The whys long ago have been satisfied. It's now, okay, so how would you do that? And would it make sense?
Why would you pick hydrogen? That'd be my question. Why? Because you can choose between hydrogen or electric or obviously gas or, different things.
It's been a journey. It's interesting because we actually
there it is.
Started out, hey, loving it. Loving it. The Love Train.
That's why I got that name, loving it.
So 20 years ago, it was actually onboard batteries and what are called ultra capacitors. Yeah. And it would pulse. The ultra capacitor would get the thing going and keep it going from one station to the next. Right. And so we did some early research on exactly the question, which is the best? Is it plug-in battery, gets recharged, opportunity charging, they call it each station, is the ultra capacitors that have a big punch that gets you from station to station. And hydrogen, which is the federal and global consortium, the International Hydrogen Consortium, is the latest, and green hydrogen. And the feasibility, yes, you could plug in at each station. Yes, you could have ultra caps, but hydrogen actually is the one that worked out the best. So that's why we're going hydrogen. Just from strictly duty cycle assessment of energy needs, it's all on board. You don't need to worry about infrastructure at stations or anything like that. It's the cheapest.
So today, Giga Berlin launched their Gigatrain or electric train that runs from Berlin to the Gigafactory and Tesla's Gigafactory, and that's electric. And they're going to move about 45, I'm going to get this number right, 4,500 people a day or something like that. So that is an electric train.
45,000.
45,000 maybe? I don't know. Lots of people anyway. Big train. It looks like your train.
How long is it?
How long is the train? It looks similar to yours, like 3 or 4 cars, I think, or something like that.
Long in kilometers.
Oh, I don't know the answer.
So we're running 340 kilometers, and it really is. We couldn't find anywhere in North America to compare with what we're talking about in terms of the valley. Right. Karlsruhe is probably the closest. It's got a couple of 100 kilometers, and it's through low-density German valleys. It serves cities as a streetcar. Yeah.
And is that a hydrogen train?
No, that's actually inheriting the traditional overhead electric wire.
Like the old Vancouver trolley buses kind of thing, right? Exactly. Where they fall off all the time and you have to go.
Well, no, and there's nothing, I should say, inherently wrong with it when you inherit it as a legacy system. What we're talking about here is something new. And do we want the substations, the electrical overhead? It would effectively double the cost to have something similar to that here.
So this is a single rail?
Between cities right now at the current demand, yes.
Just a single rail, though. It's running on one rail? Or
No, it's a single set of railway tracks.
Oh, okay. So it's
two rails, standard North American gauge. And for that, that is what enables it to connect to the U.S. system at Osoyoos and to the rest of the Canadian network at Kamloops.
So it goes one way. So it's only one train that's running back and forth because you can't. Or is there stops where they can kind of like miss each other kind of thing?
There are passing sidings at each station.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you got to have time in a little bit. And runs on the side of the road.
Can run on the side, in the middle, absolutely.
So if it's running in the middle, though, then it would be subjected to the traffic that's flowing, too, I guess.
Well, let's take, do you want to take Kelowna HOV lanes?
Sure, let's do it.
So right now, we've got our buses, our 97 bus that runs in the HOV lanes, right?
Yep.
It keeps up with traffic, even though it's stopping. And it's because it's got priority at those lanes.
Right.
It doesn't have priority at signals, but I could see that easily being implemented so that you get advance priority, like almost queue jumpers. You've seen them, signals.
Yep. I played around with ChatGPT asking about hydrogen versus like battery, and the battery technology seems to be getting better and better and cheaper.
Yes.
So my question is, like, hydrogen still has some, like you said, green hydrogen. Is that hydrogen that you find, or hydrogen you have to create?
Oh, your green hydrogen really doesn't reside at normal atmospheric pressure and temperature in anything but water.
Right.
So you've got to split water or reform methane, steam methane, reform literally. It takes 4 times the energy to produce the same energy potential of hydrogen as you do using gas. Like that's not even in debate. What we're talking about is producing hydrogen from excess renewables. Okay, so we're talking excess. Either
so wasted ends that would be wasted. You would use that.
Off peak, whatever. And that's the thing is we this whole concept was tested in Quebec last summer, so 2023, by the manufacturer of the first hydrogen passenger train, Alstom, who now own the Bombardier plant in Quebec. So I mean, they can produce these things in Canada. Our UBC researchers right now are looking at the new battery technology. It's going to drive the cost down. It's going to keep it local production, local material source. So it's coming. But the whole system as a whole requires not just hydrogen, but also fuel cells and the batteries.
Right. But when does it become feasible that you wouldn't use hydrogen and just go straight to batteries?
If it could be right away, like CN Rail, freight. Yeah. They've got different duty cycles. Yeah. So they're going battery only, battery electric freight locomotives. In CP, so CP Kansas City, out in Calgary, they're going hydrogen fuel cell road engines. It really, I keep using this phrase duty cycle. It depends on the run, the length of the run, the frequency, stops and starts. Opportunities for charging are a big one, Jim. So it does, it boils down to looking at the duty. And what we're talking about over a very long run, where you've got 15, 30-minute headways, maybe an hour in the low periods, and you want to go all the way and back, it needs to have enough of a charge on board, and you've got some distance between stations to make that without having to charge. And the most cost-effective, cheapest way is onboard hydrogen fuel cells.
I mean, I like I said, I did something with ChatGPT and talking about just for cars, a comparison between hydrogen and battery electric. And, it seemed like battery electric was far and away the winner and less risky and all that other stuff too, because there is still the potential. Hydrogen is obviously volatile and you have to store it. There's some expense in storing it because it's got to be in an airtight, compressed container. And in a crash, obviously, it would be more catastrophic than even a gas car.
That's interesting. The safety of hydrogen has more or less become an urban myth. Yeah. It's not what folks think. In fact,
it's not the Hindenburg.
No, it's not the Hindenburg, and that's what I was exactly referring to. Thank you for bringing that up. WorkSafe BC, if they were asked to look at diesel, gas, and hydrogen, they'd pick hydrogen. It's just that much safer than our conventional fuels. Right now, the production and the cost are keeping it out from conventional use. But over longer trips with heavier loads, this is where hydrogen comes to the forefront.
So Ballard Energy is one of the companies in Canada that's kind of explored the heavy duty stuff, like, like for ships and boats and buses and all that kind of stuff. And they seem to gain a lot of traction for a while. Their stock shot up big and it kind of fell off and then it went again. And they seem to be having trouble with like second and third orders and stuff like that though. What's their struggle?
I don't think they have a struggle so much as they are the Cadillac of hydrogen fuel cells. Yeah. And they have a higher cost because their fuel cells are more durable. There are others out there. They are the world leader. For example, New Flyer. That's what they use. Their fuel cells are the best, bar none. And New Flyer buses.
Right.
And they're used all over North America, hydrogen fuel cell buses, but on only the longer bus routes, right? So that's why I keep coming back to, would a hydrogen fuel cell car make sense? I mean, you've done your research. I've done mine too, and the data lines up. For short runs, no, absolutely.
No, and just the bigger problem is just the filling stations or whatever. There's just not enough of them right now. Well, the network isn't big enough.
That is right now the Achilles heel. We're working on that one too for two reasons. Number one, you got to get you almost have to lift the whole sector up simultaneously, Jim.
Kind of like what Elon did with Tesla, right? Like he built out that supercharger network, which was his kind of like secret sauce, whereas everybody else kind of went to EVs and they were trying to build out their own network, and it never really, their reliability was nowhere near Tesla's. And then plus they just were spotty, and they were putting them in, even the Ford CEO, Jim Farley said, like a lot of the stations were put in the back of like, Walmart or something that you couldn't find them, whereas Tesla was very dominant. And then Ford said, like, we want to use the Tesla one. And then
so does
everybody
Toyota.
else. Yeah.
Everybody's good. And he's a genius for releasing his patents.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that regard, I think he really thought forward on this, like, how do we build out the charging infrastructure first before we, and that's, I think, what is really hurting hydrogen for sure.
The green hydrogen or hydrogen supply, that's turquoise where they have carbon capture nailed. It is what actually right across Canada, CSA group in terms of safety standards, making sure the fittings, all the hardware associated with doing it safely. We're being watched by National Research Council. They're trying to learn from us. The whole sector, rail, bus, heavy duty trucks, you name it, they're trying to learn together, the producers and also transmission, transport of hydrogen. It's and this is why it's a global consortium. It's unless the demand is there to pull the supply and the technology, it's a great idea in theory.
Isn't it kind of like VHS and Betamax at the time though too, right? Because like battery electric seems to be like the most cost-effective solution right now, and you could be energy independent if you put solar at home. Like you can produce your own energy, where hydrogen's always not going to probably ever get to the point where you're producing hydrogen at home.
Well, now that's an interesting. I do intend to produce hydrogen at home. I've got solar panels on my net zero carriage house. So this is a perfect example where you've got excess solar that you can use to create hydrogen. So then the other...
You're going to create the hydrogen at home though?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Why not?
Well, there you go.
And you could use it locally, in terms of being in our valley and just closing that loop. To me, it's really important if we're using the water, because remember, water is one of the raw materials, just like electricity. You want to consume it locally, so it closes the loop. But storage, at what pressure? You mentioned earlier high pressure compressors.
Containers,
The balance of plant, we call that. So how do you handle this thing from really high pressure into the fuel cell, which is only 5 to 10 atmospheres, when it's stored at 350 and 700 atmospheres? Well, actually, there's a company in Vancouver, in Burnaby, happens to be right beside Ballard, by the way, no coincidence, that are producing nanotechnology, carbon-based storage media that are at 50 atmospheres. So now you've got rid of the compressors, because from 50 to 10, that's a regulator that can be used to handle that transition without all that extra expensive a balance.
So what does it cost to produce hydrogen at home? You got solar panels, you already got that cost. Now you're going to do, so you can zero to create hydrogen at home?
Well, you do need an electrolyzer.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I'm saying. There's something, right?
Oh, well, like everything has something. I mean, if we could just... it costs a lot less, but even batteries, right? There's a cost of electrification and using solar to, the panels themselves and converting that. What I want to see is absolutely disparate energy generation. There's 10 different ways to produce hydrogen. Right. And you can even say the same thing about electricity. We've got wind, biomass, solar,
lots of ways,
hydroelectric. And so hydrogen, like electricity itself, it can be produced in so many disparate ways. And then that means it can be in different sources. It doesn't have to be part of a grid. What I'm hoping is to free people, and our research is about reducing the cost, improving the design, and obviously optimizing the safety.
Because I look at hydrogen, and in my mind, it seems to be an excellent way to store excess energy, because you can't really store electricity, right? But you can store it in a battery. You can store it in hydrogen. Right?
Hydrogen is the new battery. Batteries die in the cold. hydrogen, you can store it for decades.
There are heat pumps that they're putting in Teslas now that kind of counteract that
Excellent
cold
to hear.
thing, right? So
I'm sorry, I don't want you to take this personally, Jim.
No, I'm just saying that the technology is moving on every problem, solution, problem, solution, problem,
and that's
solution,
why we've been looking
right?
this for 10 years, 20 years, because every time people ask, what about this, what about that, it's another research opportunity. This is fantastic.
Right. So yeah, problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution, right? So, and I think if we can have discussions where we're not offended when somebody says, hey, this might be better, then we're always going to, because we're going to compete and we're going to figure out which is the best way to do it, right?
Or they both work depending on the circumstances.
I mean, we have diesel, we have gasoline, and we have natural gas. We are, even in heating our homes, we have wood, we have a multiple way to heat homes, right? And
what you're saying is bang on. It's feeling safe enough to ask the questions. Why not?
Yeah.
And which is best, it becomes such a relative term. As technology is improving, it depends on that circumstance, that duty cycle I was talking about.
Because with AI becoming more dominant, one of the biggest things that AI does is eat electricity, right? It eats energy.
3% at last count, was it?
And it's going to eat more. Right? Like it's as AI gets more powerful, it's kind of like that movie Terminator. It just wants energy, right? It just eats energy, right? So, like Bitcoin miners eat a lot of energy, but AI is going to make Bitcoin look like it's just having a snack, right?
Ever had your computer hacked by a Bitcoin miner?
No,
I have, and it really slows it down. It doesn't just eat energy.
Yeah, there you go. So energy is kind of like the gold of the future, right? Energy is so important, right? So
exactly.
And how do we get more cleaner, abundant energy, because our energy needs are going to go, exponentially higher.
Right. And so using the sun, I mean, we hope even to harvest lightning. I mean, there's enough lightning strikes on the planet every day to...
And there's a lot of energy in one strike.
Oh, 100 times over. All the world energy needs.
I think there's a movie about that though, right?
I don't know.
Some kid was doing Percy Jackson, the lightning thief.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Benjamin Franklin.
No, Percy Jackson. I think it was just a kid's movie. But anyway, anything else people should know about hydrogen and the train itself? When do you think something like that would happen? In your lifetime, or where is that train?
You would not believe the interest I'm getting from every part of the spectrum that would be required to get something like that going, including investors, contractors, P3, teams. The next paper, in fact, the research paper we're working on right now is called Partnerships and Leadership, because when is the big? I'm actually thinking it's time to start moving past when to.
So would it start at stages, Kelowna to Vernon, or Vernon to Kelowna, or Penticton kind of thing? Is that stage one, or University to Kelowna?
2 days ago, I had this very discussion. Where we're going to allow people to kick the tires, Jim? Where should that technology demonstrator happen? And I've had people say, well, if you're going to do it in Kelowna, you got to do it from West Kelowna to Kelowna. Then, well, wait a sec. What about Vernon, connecting up to Vernon?
I'm sure you've got the rail trail thrown at you too, right? Why not use the rail trail?
But it doesn't have to be. Again, this is subject to communities deciding what's good for them, what works best for them. We use the highway just because we have the telemetry, have all the vertical, horizontal gradients. We can use that as a good case study. It's also got 8% hills, not a problem.
Right.
So for us, it was the toughest surrogate of a route to use. Right. Yes, the rail trail is nice and flat. It's freight rail grade, obviously, but it's also really popular as a bike route now, and it's drawing some good.
But you can put it up like they do in obviously it costs more money, like they do in Vancouver at SkyTrain and stuff like that.
If you want to increase the cost 50 to 100 fold.
Yeah.
This thing has to be affordable. That's why what they did in Germany 40 years ago in low density rural German valleys between cities, connecting the valley, same climate, same density as what we've got here now, works, and it's affordable.
So cost per kilometer right now in your calculations?
5 to 10 million per kilometer.
And then, so how many kilometers between?
340.
So, $1 billion or more, right?
It's probably in the $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
Capital up front, and this is why pension funds and basically large P3 companies are interested, because there's no way local government is going to lift that. That's a heavy lift. That requires partnerships. We're looking. This supports the federal and the provincial net zero hydrogen consortium campaign.
Do autonomous cars kill it?
Absolutely not. No,
You don't think
this
so?
is an ally. You know what this does? It gets 30% of the people driving in front of you out of your way, man.
No, I'm just saying if autonomous cars are like buses or like, small vans and stuff like that, they're just...
Oh, when we're 100% of the traffic
Yeah,
stream
and they're going to
autonomous?
move faster and they're going to move together and stuff like that.
You're still going to have growth. To a certain extent, autonomous cars might help, but how much more efficient can you make a road when you have a platoon, right? And that's what you're talking about. Autonomous vehicles, they're going to be able to have a
they'll go faster and they'll be like, on top of each other basically. And more passenger orientated as opposed to single occupants.
I hope so, because that's where the ultimate is. When you think about it, when I'm talking about this Valley tram train, it's people that want to have somebody else do the driving for them. At the end of the day, yes, privacy. We want our own private space, and that's why autonomous vehicles will feel very much like what we're talking about here. This is just groups of people that perhaps want to have another way to travel with their families or larger or have the flexibility of getting on.
Have you done the Tesla underground Tesla thing in Las Vegas?
The tunnel, not yet.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool because they're
the hyper tunnel.
Yeah, the hyper tunnel. You go down there and they're using Teslas right now, and there's occupancy of like 5. So and it's just anybody gets in them and then they go, and they're really fast, right? And they take you where it would take you like 5 times as long to get above ground as what's happening underground. Right. So a lot of the autonomous vehicles that I see being built out are like kind of like vans that are like 8 to 10 passenger things, and you know what I mean. They don't have a steering wheel or anything, and they're just kind of like passenger cabins, right? Small trains.
To me, it's all part of the mix.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, we've got people that fly in that don't have one. We could have car rentals, car share at the airport, or we can have a train station.
Yeah, and I did see at the CES too. I went there. They have a lot of light aircraft based on drones, kind of thing, where you're lifting up and you're not using roads.
Again,
and stuff
autonomous.
like that. Yeah,
all of it. Yeah. It's going to boil down to economic feasibility, trade-offs, opportunity costs. It's not for everybody. Some people are afraid of flying. Some people are afraid of driving. Some people want to travel more casually and not have to worry about their 3,000-pound paperweight being parked.
And then technology has also allowed more people to work at home too, so less commuting necessary for some people too, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
So a lot of technology at work in so many different areas, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's great. I went to CES. That was a great thing. I'd recommend if somebody gets a chance to go there. It's kind of shows you what's going on in the future for sure.
Exactly.
So there you go. Are you going to be the first pilot on that thing? Are you going to be driving that thing? Kind of like Richard Branson?
Okay, here's an interesting story. Here is a really cool story. You got to listen to this. So one of my former students, I met him while taking a tour of the Kettle Valley Historic Steam Train in Summerlin.
Oh, yeah.
He was a fully fledged locomotive engineer. He came and did a civil engineering degree with me now. He then went out into industry, and he now works for Atkins Realis, who's former SNC. Their major contribution to our community is the floating bridge, by the way. They're the P3 partner there, but they do all the light rail systems in all the cities. He's now the operations manager for the Kettle Valley Light Rail. That could be the test site for
just running on that rail to kind of see how it goes.
Absolutely. And we've invited Alstom to do that. He's checked out the operations. So that's kind of exciting. I could see being the locomotive engineer ceremonially on this thing because he's actually certified. These aren't freight vehicles, but he's got his locomotive certification. It's always safety first.
I would say by that time, autonomy will be probably pretty prevalent, and he'd be more of a ceremonial guy for sure, right?
Oh, no. Okay, you're talking about the actual, will these vehicles be self-driven or driven? In Karlsruhe, they've had the technology evolve, as you know, AI over there as well as autonomous vehicles. They're still driven because many of the folks using them, not just commuters, are tourists.
Right.
And having a conductor, somebody there to drive them.
Ask questions and stuff like that too, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Ambassadors.
Anyway, I think we got another call coming in, so we're going to finish there. It's always great talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Blessings. And thank you for watching Kelowna Now.